Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it. The glow from Scarlett's phone reflected off Brian Ellington's face as he scrolled absentmindedly, his fingers tightening over the edges of the device. He hadn't meant to snoop. He was simply helping Scarlett set up a new app when an incoming message notification caught his eye. A group chat named The Real Family, one he had never heard of, flashed onto the screen. The preview read, "Don't worry, Mom. Brian's just the ATM. I never loved him at all, Mom. Dad will be the one walking me down the aisle." A dull roar filled Brian's ears. His breath hitched as he hesitated, then tapped the message. The screen flooded with a series of texts, each one a dagger driven deeper into his chest. Ellen, the girl he had raised since she was 4, the girl he had sent to private school, paid for her college tuition, and supported every step of the way, was laughing at him behind his back. And Scarlett, his wife, his partner, was right there, encouraging it. "Brian's good for the bills, sweetheart. Let him think he's part of it. I never liked him. He was a comfortable walking wallet." A cold wave of realization washed over him. He was nothing but a bank account to them. For a long moment, Brian just sat there, the phone heavy in his hands. His fingers hovered over the screen, debating whether to confront Scarlett immediately. His heart pounded in his chest, a mix of anger and sadness clawing at his throat. But then, an idea took root, a cold, calculated idea that made his lips curl into a slow, grim smile. He would not yell. He would not fight. No, that would be too easy for them. If they saw him as a wallet, they were about to find out what happened when that wallet closed. Taking a deep breath, he placed the phone gently on the counter. From the kitchen, Scarlett called, "Brian, you find the issue?" He inhaled sharply, composing himself before turning to her with a placid smile. "Yeah," he said smoothly, "just needed a quick reboot." Scarlett barely looked up from the dinner she was preparing, humming softly to herself, oblivious to the storm that had just settled within him. He memorized the way she moved, the way she continued with life as if nothing was wrong, as if she hadn't just shattered the illusion of trust he had built over the years. Brian made a silent promise to himself. He would play his role perfectly. He would continue as the devoted husband and father. He would nod, smile, and agree to every extravagant wedding request Ellen threw his way. And then, when the moment was right, he would walk away, leaving them to face the consequences of their betrayal. Brian played his role masterfully. He smiled at wedding dress fittings, nodded in approval at extravagant floral arrangements, and even feigned excitement when Ellen gushed about the designer invitations. Every check he signed, every agreement he confirmed, he did so with an unreadable expression. What they didn't realize was that, behind the scenes, he had already begun unraveling the foundation of their so-called perfect wedding. The contracts, all transferred to Scarlett and Ellen's names. The final payments, carefully left outstanding. Brian had ensured that when the bill came due, it wouldn't be his problem. On the day of the wedding, the sun hung high in the sky, illuminating the grand venue, a historic estate with sprawling gardens and crystal chandeliers. Guests arrived in expensive suits and elegant gowns, sipping champagne and admiring the opulence. Everything appeared flawless. Brian stood near the entrance, watching with a calm detachment. Ellen's biological father, Mark, hovered nearby, puffing out his chest as if he had played any role in funding this spectacle. As the ceremony began, the doors swung open, and Ellen stepped forward, her hand resting on Mark's arm. She looked radiant, confident, completely unaware of the disaster waiting in the wings. The moment they reached the altar, Brian took a deep breath, then stood. The murmur of the crowd hushed as he adjusted his tie and spoke in a steady, even voice. "I'd like to say a few words before this ceremony continues." Ellen beamed, assuming he was about to give some heartfelt speech about fatherly love. Scarlett, standing off to the side, showed the first flicker of unease. Brian turned to the guests. "I'd had the privilege of raising Ellen since she was 4 years old. I supported her, loved her, and provided for her without hesitation." His voice remained warm, but the undercurrent of steel was unmistakable. "But I recently discovered that in her eyes, I was never a father, just an ATM." An ordinary wallet. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Ellen's smile faltered. Brian's expression remained unreadable. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out an envelope, and extended it toward Scarlett. "What's this?" she asked, her brow furrowing as she took it. "Divorce papers," he said flatly, his voice void of emotion. "I hope someone else can provide for you the same way I did." Scarlett's face paled as she flipped through the documents. Before she could respond, Brian turned on his heel and strode toward the exit, leaving the wedding and his past behind without looking back. Chaos didn't erupt immediately. At first, there was only confusion. Ellen stared after Brian, her expression frozen in disbelief. Murmurs swelled through the crowd, a mixture of curiosity and unease. Then the venue manager stepped forward, his clipboard clutched tightly in his hands. "Ms. Ellen, Mrs. Scarlett," he addressed them curtly, "we need to settle the remaining balance before continuing." Scarlett's face tightened. "What are you talking about? Brian took care of everything." The manager's expression was unreadable. "Actually, ma'am, the final payments were transferred into your name and remain outstanding. We require immediate payment to proceed." Mark shifted uncomfortably. This must be some kind of mistake. Brian wouldn't just. A staff member discreetly approached the venue doors and, without fanfare, turned the locks. Ellen's stomach twisted. "Wait, what are you doing?" The manager didn't flinch. "Standard policy. Until we receive payment, no one leaves." A ripple of panic spread through the guests. Ellen turned frantically to her mother. "Mom?" Scarlett's fingers trembled as she scrolled through her banking app. Her face went ashen. The accounts, he shut them down. Ellen's heartbeat pounded in her ears. This wasn't happening. This could be happening. Her eyes darted to Mark. "Dad, you can cover it, right?" Mark let out an awkward chuckle, rubbing the back of his neck. "Sweetheart, I don't exactly have that kind of money lying around." The whispers among the guests turned to outright conversation. Someone checked their phone, gasping as Brian's speech had already begun trending online. The floors walked up, arms crossed. "So, are we getting paid, or are we packing up these flowers?" The DJ yanked off his headphones. "I don't play for free." The tension reached a breaking point. Ellen's vision blurred as reality came crashing down. Her dream wedding, the one she had so carefully planned, the one she had envisioned down to the last perfect detail, was falling apart, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Scarlett turned to her, voice strained. "Ellen, what do we do?" For the first time in her life, Ellen had no answer, no backup plan, no escape, just a locked door and the weight of every choice she had made finally coming back to haunt her. The fallout was swift and brutal. By the time Ellen and Scarlett left the venue, hours later, humiliated and broke, the damage had already spread beyond the walls of the ruined wedding. Guests, angered by the chaos, had taken to social media, recounting the fiasco in real time. By morning, hashtags like #WeddingFromHell and #ATMStepdad were trending nationwide. Scarlett sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at her phone. Every major news outlet had picked up the story. "Socialist dream wedding turns nightmare," one headline read. "Ungrateful bride gets ultimate lesson," another mocked. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through thousands of comments, each one harsher than the last. Ellen, hunched over on the couch, groaned. "This is a disaster. How do we fix this?" Scarlett's voice was hollow. "We don't." The doorbell rang. When Scarlett opened it, she found her sister, Miranda, standing there with her arms crossed. "I told you," Miranda said, stepping inside. "I told you years ago not to treat Brian like a doormat. Now look at you." Scarlett bristled. "Don't start with me, Miranda." Miranda shook her head. "You humiliated the only man who ever truly took care of you, and now the world knows it." Ellen's phone buzzed. A message from her now ex-fiancé, Andrew, appeared on the screen. "I can't do this. We're done." Her stomach twisted as she read it over and over. The reality of her actions was settling in like a lead weight. The wedding wasn't just ruined, her future had collapsed. Meanwhile, Brian's story was being shared across the internet as an act of poetic justice. People hailed him as a hero for exposing the greed of those he once loved. Offers flooded in, from business opportunities to women wanting to meet him. While Ellen and Scarlett drowned in public disgrace, Brian was thriving. Scarlett rubbed her temples. "We have to talk to Brian. Maybe if we explain." Miranda scoffed. "Explain what? That you used him?" That Ellen mocked the man who raised her. "No, he's done with you." For the first time in her life, Scarlett felt true regret. Not because she had lost a husband, not because Ellen had lost a fiancé, but because the man they had taken for granted had finally walked away, and this time he wasn't coming back. Brian leaned back in his chair, staring at the endless blue horizon of Maui's coast. The rhythmic sound of the waves crashing against the shore was a stark contrast to the chaotic memories of the past year. His phone vibrated against the table. Another message from Scarlett. He had ignored the last 5, but curiosity got the better of him. "Brian, please, we need to talk. I know I made mistakes, but I can't undo the past. I just need you to understand." He exhaled sharply, his fingers tightening around the glass of whiskey in front of him. The same tired excuses, the same desperate attempts to pull him back into their web. He had once hoped for this moment, the day they'd realize what they had lost. But now, it felt empty. "You look like a man deep in thought." Olivia's voice broke through. She slid into the chair across from him, her sun-kissed skin glowing in the warm evening light. They had met 2 weeks ago, and for the first time in years, Brian felt at peace. "Scarlett again," he muttered, tossing the phone onto the table. "She's sorry, or at least, she says she is." Olivia smirked. "Regret doesn't mean change. It just means she lost her safety net." Brian nodded, rolling the glass between his fingers. "Exactly. It's not about love or guilt. It's about the consequences catching up to her." A silence passed between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was understanding. He picked up his phone, typed a final reply, and hit send. "I don't finance ingratitude. I invest in things that bring me joy. You're not one of them." Then, with a simple motion, he blocked her number. The moment felt lighter than he expected. No anger, no pain, just closure. He lifted his glass toward Olivia, who clinked hers against his with a knowing smile. "To new beginnings," she said. Brian took a sip, his eyes locked onto the horizon. This time, he wasn't looking back. Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.